Hey y'all, I'm Kendrick Shope. Now I know what you might be thinking. Oh great, here comes another person telling me a ton of skill sets that I need to run a successful business. But not so quick. I'm gonna share with you today a no BS, true way to make money in your business. Welcome to this episode of Sell Like a Woman. And this is usually our podcast, but Jason Van Orden is our guest today. And he has such a relevant topic, such a hot topic, such a scandalous topic that not only are we going to put it up on iTunes for the podcast, but I wanted to be able to have a conversation with Jason live on Facebook, for you. This is part of what we're calling being radically generous here over the next couple of months into 2018, because that actually makes me happy. I was feeling the ick, sort of like what we're going to talk about today. And radically generous was one of my solutions to that. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kendrick. I am thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
To come and chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. So for those of you who don't know Jason, how long have you been in this industry?
Well, let's see. I've been in the online space since 2004. So that's about 13 years. Been an entrepreneur a little longer than that.
It's crazy.
Yeah. My first launch was done by direct mail, if that tells you anything.
I love it. That's old-fashioned selling right there.
Yeah.
I love it. And so tell everybody, Jason, a little bit about where you were and sort of what you've transitioned to, because that speaks a lot to what we're going to talk about here today, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was a little over 2 years ago. I was living in Paris. And the reason I mentioned that is this was like a pinnacle lifestyle dream that I had even before I knew I'd be an entrepreneur. And I mentioned that because I think a combination of reaching that huge goal I'd had for years, maybe getting a little older, having been in the same business for 10 years. So I had a 10-year business where we'd sold, $7 million, over 7,000 different students of online entrepreneurial training, very successful business. But despite that success and living that lifestyle dream, I was in this place where things were feeling a little off to me. And when it got to being a string of too many days of feeling frustrated and off, I knew I had to do something about it. And that started this journey over the last couple of years of really experimenting, looking at what I wanted next, and then looking at, well, what's going on in the industry? Why is it that I was feeling so off? Noticing things that were kind of the status quo that were really bothering me. And then having over 60 conversations with, entrepreneurs, innovators, change makers, thought leaders, one-on-one to talk to them about what's frustrating them, what are the problems they're running into, what they see the opportunities moving forward being. And I just started seeing some really interesting themes emerging about what people were frustrated by. And as I had more of these conversations and told them, hey, I'm hearing these things from others, they're like, well, I can't tell you what a relief that is, because I just thought I was weird and not wanting to do it the way that everyone else seems to be doing it. So there's just clearly a conversation here to be had and to bring forward. And I think people are going to really resonate with a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today. And again, this comes from a lot of other people at all kinds of degrees of success. So you're not the only one if this stuff resonates with you that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted you here and why I wanted it to go out immediately to mediums everywhere. And so I want to just go back a little bit to something that you said and I know this is not the focus, but it's really important for people to understand where you came from and the level of success that you had created. You're living in Paris, which is a lifelong dream, over $7 million in business. I mean, that is the dream for a lot of people, right? To be able to live independently, to be able to help over 7,000 people, $7 million in business. And so I would imagine that there has to be a really strong feeling that comes up for you to even begin to evaluate, hey, is this even making me happy? Is that right?
Well, yeah. And in fact, at first, when I started feeling kind of unsettled, I think I kind of pushed it away because I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. I mean, every day I'm telling my students they got to build a business that they love. It needs to fulfill them. It needs to, and let me be clear. Like I had many years of loving that business, very proud of what I did, but just things, were shifting. And it was both, I think, things in the industry as well, things for me personally. And so, yeah, absolutely. It had to reach a certain point for me to go, okay, wait a second. I got to take a sabbatical from things here a bit. And we hired somebody to run that business. So I could just kind of like look at, again, inwardly and outwardly to figure out, well, where do things need to go next?
Yeah. Yeah. So in over 10 years, is that what you said in the online space? Over 10 years just
Well,
online?
see, in the online space, 13 years and 10 years in that business that I'd been in that
13
business.
over 13 years in the online space. And it's funny, when Jason told me this privately, I said I didn't even know that this had been around 13 years. I really didn't. I mean, I've been here 6 years and I feel like a veteran. So you double that and more. But I would imagine that you've seen the industry go through lots of changes, which is kind of what I want, where is our industry broken? That's what we want to talk about. So what are let's start with the good. What are the good and the positive changes that you've seen in 13 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we go back 10, 15 years, and it's interesting to know, like, as long as that seems, a lot has changed in the world because of the internet and media that goes through the internet. And so what we've seen is, go back 10 or 15 years, and it was the blockbuster influencers who had the capacity to really make change and impact. The Oprah Winfrey's. I mean, that's just an obvious example, right? You had to be a best-selling author or like a media personality. So they're like, the opportunities and shelf space for those kinds of influencers was very limited. Well, now fast forward to today, and we've got what I call the long tail of influence, where every person with some, their perspective, their story, their message to share, their own experience can be a lens for this massive amount of human knowledge we have today, and shine it in the one corner of the world that means the most to them, or that they have a very relevant and resonant message to share. And I think that, in fact, I firmly believe that if we can expand out that long tail of influence and amplify that when you combine the impact and the change that happens in the world thanks to all those people, it far outweighs what the big blockbuster companies and personalities and not that there's anything, I mean, they do, awesome things too, but think about all the little, problems and populations and things that we have to solve in the world. And I just think it's fantastic that in that time now, it's becoming more of a mainstream thing, where people are coming online, not only looking for community support, answers, but also to provide that and see, it's like, oh, this is a real opportunity for me to make a real difference, and hey, make a good living at it while I'm at it too.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, I think back to when I started in this industry. I thought at that point in time, I was a successful drug rep. And I thought at that time, my opportunity to really do what I love and be an example for Halliana had passed me by. I was 30 something. I'm 40. So 32 years old. And I thought, I'm never, going to get on television. I'm never going to have the opportunity to have the sphere of influence that I want. And there's some really crappy thinking in there. I get that. But enter the internet and this opportunity to press record and just share whatever it is, good, bad, ugly. And it's really changed my life. And I don't want anyone here listening to think that this is a bash session of our industry. However, with all its positives, there's some negatives. And Jason and I happen to be in a group of thought leaders, a Facebook group that is a group of thought leaders, where we see a lot of, Jason noticed, and he and I have since talked about, a lot of conversations going on about, is our industry broken? What's going on in our industry? A lot of people that have created success, like Jason talked about, $7 million in business. Over 7,000 people are saying things like, do I need to change directions? I've even thought, do I need to quit and be a fashion blogger? Like, that's what I really love, getting magazines and reading about what's hot for fall. And well, that feels radical. That's a sign that something is off somewhere, right? No, I don't need to go be a fashion blogger, but something's off somewhere. So Jason, talk to us about the flip side. We've talked about the positive. What's going on in the industry today that has really sparked this conversation?
Mm-hmm. So here's the analogy that I like to use. It's like, when the Wild West opened up and the first wave of people to go out there were like, hey, the prospectors, and let's go, pan for gold. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that was, that was a certain element of developing the West. And then eventually, when people are like, oh, there's stuff going on out there, people can live out there, there's opportunity and land and all these other things, then more people started to come. And whereas it used to be, hey, pan gold or sell the shovels were like the two options that you had, now all these different opportunities and civilization started building out. And I feel like we're kind of going through that transition online. And this isn't at all to disparage saying, oh, there's a bunch of gold diggers that came, because guess what? We just established, I've been here 14 years. I would be incriminating myself if I said that was, I'm very, again, proud of what I was able to do during that time. And there's a lot of people who have shared some, wonderful things in marketing and business and opportunities and help people quit the 9-to-5 and find new levels of freedom and lifestyle. But now, there's other people coming out west that the way that, the dirt roads and the saloons and the scraping around in the dirt isn't necessarily like the way that they want to do it. And so now we're kind of arriving at, hey, we're going to establish some new ways of a civilization. It's a little bit of an imperfect analogy, but I think it gives you an idea. And so whereas it was all like the two prominent messages coming up till now have been, business opportunity. Hey, there's money to be made. Monetize your knowledge, sell online, passive income, all those kinds of messages. And then, quit your job, freedom, lifestyle. Those have just been the predominant things. And again, I love those messages, but now there's more people showing up that maybe they want some of that too, but it's about effecting a certain change. It's about, the message that they want to bring as well. And in fact, a lot of times the message, the meaning, the movement, the method, the idea is even more important to them than, say, multiple 7 figures. And so a lot of the language and approaches and the 2 or 3, apparent strategies and approaches that are predominant from before don't necessarily jive with the way that they want to build out and scale what they're doing. And so they're frustrated because they can't find something that feels good. They see the opportunity, but they're like, but I'm having a hard time feeling out here how to put down my plot of land and grow that out. And so that's the analogy that I would say. And so to take that analogy further, and this is where we can go with the conversation, there's some specific things that I'm noticing that are shifting and needing to change in order for the new wave of people coming out west to find their plot of land and thrive in what it is that they want to do.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think it's a great analogy. And so I'm going to, you sort of teed me up for this one, but what needs to change? And before you answer that, I'm going to give you I'm going to give our listeners a dose of sweetest pie but tough as nails, as Laura Bell Gray says about me. One of the things that, and I wonder if you agree, one of the things that I think needs to change is I'm really fed up with, and this sounds so ugly what I'm about to say. I'm getting ready to probably get a whole bunch of hate mail, but I'm really fed up with every person who is brand new to online talking about how I'm going to help you make $1 million, yet they're struggling in their business. I'm going to help you. And I know this because some of those people are my customers, and no disrespect to that, but, and I've had thought leaders say to me, well, Kendrick, you don't have to have done that in order to be able to teach it. Maybe you don't, but because it worked, I lost 100 pounds. And so you can lose 100 pounds. Well, just because it worked for you doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for the masses. Congratulations. That's amazing. But I feel like the education component is missing for a lot of people. And that sounds really ugly, but it leads me to feel kind of gross about our industry when I'm out there saying, I can help you get more customers. I can help you make more money. I can help you write copy that sells. And it almost feels like everybody's doing that same song and dance. And how do I stand out in the middle of all that?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think absolutely. And I think part of the thing there is, because I have no doubt that that people who are just starting out, I mean, they have their goals they really want for themselves. And I think they do want to genuinely help people out, but all they're seeing is one way of doing things. And I don't think, because there is such a focus on selling new strategies and tricks and shiny new things, there's not as many people helping the new wave of change makers coming in to really find their own voice and the way that they can bring value without having to like promise say the things that they see everyone saying. It's like, ooh, money and time and lose weight and the glamorous and really sexy messages that we see in the media, frankly, all over the place. And so part of the problem there is that the industry is so focused on formulas when what we really need is more frameworks. And so what I mean by that is that when it comes to marketing and sales, what really gets attention and sells well is, hey, I've got the answer, the magic bullet. I did it. And I know if you do it exactly as I did it, it will work for you too. And that's just a flawed message. There's just too many variables there. First of all, often we don't necessarily know all the factors that led to our success. And of course, your situation is going to be different than their situation. And so a couple things happen there. People go and buy a course and say, hey, well, they said this is going to work for me. And then they're going for it. And then it doesn't quite jive with them. So then they're like, well, maybe something's wrong with me. And then they go and buy another course, hoping that maybe that's the thing. Or worse, maybe they give up and decide, well, I guess I can't do this after all. When what we need is more people to take their success, and they've got the wisdom of experience to be able to go, okay, well, these are, maybe 70, 80% of this I can break down into these principles, kind of a lattice work of success. And then I can help my students to take whatever their goals are, their values, their ultimate thing that they want for themselves or their family or the world. And, take that and layer it on top of this framework, and then help them then be able to find that trajectory that feels good to them, find that voice, find that fuel. And so I think if we seek out for our own education, people who do teach frameworks, and then we also in our own courses, programs, whatever vehicle you're using to deliver your knowledge, if we can go more towards the programs and experiences that are framework like, then we're going to see a lot more improvement in the success of people and people being able to find the approach that works for them, and then even tweak it that last little bit and feel confident that it's not going to just fall apart because the marketer said, just do what I did, so you can make the 7 figures or whatever. So that's the first thing, is we need more frameworks and less formulas out there.
I want to dive into that in just a minute, but I'm going to make a confession. I say to people in sales school all the time, a newbie or a rookie mistake is saying, I can help everybody, even if you can, saying I can help men who are 60 and women who are 18. And I'm not talking about niche here. I'm just saying it's a rookie mistake. Well, I don't know who to speak to because I can help everybody. However, another rookie mistake that I was guilty of, and is exactly what you talked about. Follow the steps. When I went through corporate sales school, it was follow the steps. And I did that some with my one-on-one customers and really pushed them probably harder than I should have pushed them. Just follow the steps, follow the steps, follow the steps. And I was pretty fortunate because, for most of my one-on-one customers, they created that amount of money that they wanted to create. However, a year later, and here's the confession part, they're like, I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I can't keep this pace up. I can't keep following the steps. So now what? It feels gross to me. I don't have enough time with my kids. I feel like I'm just another voice out there in the sea of, hey, look at me. And so that's a lesson I learned. And it was a pretty hard lesson to see all those people create success. And then a year later say, I'm exhausted. Now what do I do? And so you talk about framework versus formulas. And so I really want to dive into that. Are there specific steps if people are feeling frustrated, and if people are wondering, is our industry broken? And is it a lot of, we've touched on the good, but what are some steps that we can take now towards framework rather than formula?
So let me take that from the side of right now of learning to find your business model and stuff. So the one thing I want to say there is that just in realizing that what you need is frameworks and not formulas, hopefully will help people go, okay, hey, just because I got into this course and not every facet of it worked for me doesn't mean that I'm wrong. There's a lot of this denying of your own intuition that starts happening because of the marketing message that preceded that course, or even the style of teaching that comes with it. And then also, just because you're comparing yourself to somebody else's business and how they succeeded, it's like, oh, well, they started with the podcast, so I guess I got to start with the podcast. Or, they do webinars, so I guess I got it. It's like, no, there's a million gajillion ways to do business online. Find one of the ones that works for you. And, that does mean, I'm not saying you need to go and take 10 different courses and take the pieces, but you do need to honor your intuition. And it may mean also finding a couple different mentors and then, using your intuition to meld together what you learn there. Now, from the teaching side of things, I think part of that just comes with experience of, but really, having an iterative process with your students. This is one of the biggest things. There's a lot that goes into this, but this is one of the biggest things. We get sold this message, and it's a very appealing message of just the passive income, kind of a set it and forget it. I get to make a digital course or a membership site, set it up, make a funnel, start traffic to it, and go and live my lifestyle, right? And that just doesn't exist, okay? It doesn't exist. Even if you got all those things going, ads stop working and you need new ads, or the message shifts in the market and people want something else. And so you got to hook them with something else before you give them what they need. So like that doesn't exist. And so if that's true, well, you might as well absolutely love the audience that you serve, love the thing that you teach, be so passionate that every day you are in touch with the market, you are in touch with the people that you're helping and serving and that are buying from you, and that you are continually providing for feedback loops there so that you know when something no longer works, or you know when something is kind of broken or confusing, or it's like, oh, you know what, I need to take that from this prescriptive thing to maybe saying, okay, here are 4 criteria and 3 possibilities, and using these 4 criteria, choose which one of these 3 possibilities works for you. That doesn't mean every single step has to be like that. I think there probably are times where you're like, you know what, you need to do this. You need to create content consistently. I would say that's probably true for most people. But what might not be absolutely true is that it has to be Facebook Live, or it has to be a podcast, right? So that's one piece I would throw in there that you can do is from both the learning side, and then also something to think about from the teaching side as well.
You know, it's interesting hearing you talk. I when I first started, I did this a little bit, and it's one of the things that the message has shifted in sales school towards encompassing this. But we talk about doing the common things uncommonly well, and we give them an action plan, which is a formula, right, full of steps. And what I say when I give that action plan is, it is not humanly possible to do all of this. You need to find the common things here, whether it's, podcasting or video or whatever, and do them uncommonly well and love them. And when I started years ago, I remember saying to my husband, if I go broke, that's okay. I'm going to do what I love, and that's video. And so I started KTV, and I loved it. It was so much fun. And I lost some of that somewhere, Jason. I lost some of that love with all the noises of you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. And it didn't happen to me when I was new. It happened to me after I was successful.
Right.
And that's what's fascinating to me is some of the people who are successful like you, $7 million in business. And then all of a sudden we stop and say, wait, do I even want to go to work in the morning?
Right.
Is this even something I'm looking forward to anymore?
Right. Yep.
So I love how you broke it down for people who are in a course, right? You sort of broke it down for the student and the teacher. If you're in a course, it doesn't mean, you have to follow every single step. And it doesn't mean, oh crap, I'm in a course, now what? You basically take what works for you. You use your intuition. Am I understanding that correctly? And you go and you do that uncommonly well. Is that right? Right.
And if just because something's being hyped in the marketplace and everyone's saying you got to have an automated funnel and it looks like this, it's like, look, it's got to be that nice balance of a mentor you trust and your own tuition. And there are, variations in how you can go about building your business.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's flip sides. Woo, my voice went really high. Let's flip sides to the teachers. So the thought leaders in the industry, the people who have been around for a while, the old kids on the block, if you will. And you talked about, some of the things we need to do. What are 3 healthy things, I guess, that anybody can do to stand out from the noise?
Okay. So this is great, because that is a huge problem in the industry, is that they're, at the very beginning, I talked about how it's awesome now that there's so many people coming online to share their voice and so many people come on looking for solutions, but that does mean that there's a very large noise floor that keeps going up, and it is getting trickier, harder, frankly, to rise above that noise level. And so one thing that I'd say that's more important than ever, the word that I like to use is resonance. Okay, resonance. And before I describe what I think, what I think of when I say resonance, it used to be that just coming online and starting a podcast was novel enough that got traction, that got attention. And that's how I launched that last business. Started a podcast in 2005, and it took off because we were the first there talking about the thing, right? Now, today, it's gotten a lot harder to just like start a video show, start a blog, start a podcast. That's probably not going to just doing that is not going to get you the audience. And so what's if the medium is not going to be like, interesting enough itself, well, then that leaves it to you and your message to make sure that you're highly relevant and resonant and remarkable. So actually there's 3 R's there that I like to talk about. Relevant just means that, and this is good old marketing that I'm sure a lot of people heard, is you're speaking to the top of mind pain, want, desire that people, and you can always lead them around to what they need, but you got to have that hook out there. That's not necessarily new. People have been doing that for a very long time. The reason I brought up resonance is this is where, and I hinted earlier, people need to find their own voice. It is so I learned this advice from Britney Spears' vocal coach. Okay. You might be thinking, what in the world was Jason doing talking to Britney Spears' vocal coach?
Wait, time out. I am in love with the fact that you just said Britney Spears in the middle of this. Like, I seriously want to just hug your neck. Okay, go ahead.
So back in 2004, my wife and I were in a rock band, alternative rock band. I played guitar, she sings. We kind of had this sound of like Incubus with Gwen Stefani as a vocalist and Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers on the bass, right? And we were serious about making it as rock stars. So we were doing all the stuff, CDs, shows, we had merchandise, and we went to an industry conference that was all about, hey, come to LA and learn and mix with the industry leaders. And so I'm sitting in there with my wife next to me in a conference room with all these industry luminaries speaking. And this woman gets up there, I believe her name is Liz Lewis. Anyway, I'm forgetting her name. I apologize. But she's vocal coach to Rihanna, Britney Spears, Jack Black. I mean, all kinds of people you've heard of, right? And she said, one thing that I've noticed is talent is not enough to make it in this business. There are a lot of fantastic singers and songwriters in this business. Many of you are here in this room today. But the thing I've noticed in all of my clients that really rise there to the top is that they take some piece of themselves and they turn it up to 11. And that's a reference to the mockumentary film from the 80s. This is Spinal Tap. And it doesn't really matter if you've seen it or not, but it's about a rock 80s hair band rock, right? And there's this one scene where the guy's showing his amplifier and bragging to the reporter and going, well, mine goes up to 11 while all the other blokes are playing at 10, right?
Yes.
So doesn't mean you have to be in your face or controversial or, have, pink or platinum blonde hair like Gwen Stefani or something like that. But it does mean that when it comes to the language that you use has to be it needs to be the same exact language of the ideal audience that you can serve best. And you need to turn up your values and your personality and the pieces that they're going to connect with in a way that you're this beacon that they don't care who else is out there. They just want to listen to you. And with 7 billion people in the world, you only need a few thousand of those to have a very healthy business and make a really good change in the world. So we need to go a lot more into resonance rather than, hey, let's get this huge email list. Oh, I got 50,000 on my list now. How about you? It's like, look, if you've got 3,000 resonant people on your list, you should be making at least six figures. You can. Absolutely. And if you're not, you're just a few steps away. So resonance is so important. And the way that you stay resonant is you got to be talking with and listening to on a daily basis your market. And again, in the past, we got so enamored with the lifestyle and the arm's length and the digital courses and and I'll admit, this was me too. I stopped talking to my audience. And now, whether it's on Messenger or on social media or in person or phone calls like this, I have multiple phone calls like this every week with either colleagues or people who are potential clients or past clients in order to keep that resonance going. And so that's one of the absolute most important things you can do when it comes to rising above the noise floor, because then you just take that and your content, you're going to be constantly having great content ideas. In fact, that Britney Spears subject line headline came right out of a conversation I was having with somebody, and that story came to me and I'm like, that's it. It's an email. I sent it and people loved that email, right? And that came from having this conversation, people going, how the freak do I stand out today? Let me tell you what Britney Spears coach told me, right? So resonance, that's what you got to have.
I think that it's so, and I see this in the entertainment industry, not that I'm in the entertainment industry, but I love plays. I love the stage, and we've seen some amazing world-class performers. And then, you go to a show, maybe off Broadway or something that's good, but it's not fantastic. And it's the same. Rent is an example. Saw, Rent, amazing show, and then we saw it with a different cast, and it's the same music and the same storyline, and it was just sort of As a matter of fact, it was probably a little worse than and it was actually on Broadway when I saw it then. And I remember saying, it's just not good enough to be able to stand up there and sing your heart out anymore. There is you use the word resonance. I would have said in that case, stage presence, but there's something. I didn't connect to the people, and the whole group of people I was with agreed. I think that there's so much goodness in there, Jason, and I know we have to be respectful of your time, but a couple of things that really stand out is there are a lot of talented people out there. There are a lot of people who can, who can teach you how to sell more, how to be your life coach. They can teach you how to whatever. And I got caught up in that numbers game. And I had a conversation with Danielle Laporte last week, and we were talking about this numbers game. And she's talked about how it's always been growth, growth, growth. And you got to have this many people on your list to make this many $1 million and growth, growth, growth. And I have this written down, and I say it every day before I start work. What if we radically simplified? What if we were radically generous to the people who are already here?
Already there, yeah.
Yeah. What if we took care of the people who said, I resonate with you. I like your personality. I like your style. I like your whatever, and I learn from you. And it was a shift on this go bigger, go harder, go faster model that I feel like so many experts are being told to do. So I love what you said. It gives me chills, as a matter of fact. So let's say, Jason, that I'm an expert. I've been in this industry for a while, and I'm jiving with everything. I don't think I've ever used the word jive before, but I'm head nodding. I call this Dr. Dreing when you're Dr. head nodding. Keep their heads ringing. Keep their heads ringing. Your head's not. So I'm Dr.
Incidentally,
Dreing.
that's what I did in my rock band with my guitars. I did a lot of this.
I love it. Yeah. So I'm Dr. Dreing with everything that you say here. I think this conversation is so important about how we rise up and be examples for the new people who are coming up into this industry, because you're right. There's 7 billion people in the world, and we have the potential to influence them all. So how do we do that? How do we rise up above the noise? Is it just having this conversation? Is it what do we need to do?
Well, first of all, yes, absolutely. The awareness of these things, finding people to talk. I mean, you mentioned, actually it was before we got on that, like I'm doing dinners now here regularly in New York City, because these one-on-one conversations, I'm like, I need a space. People keep saying, oh, others are saying this stuff too. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to create these dinners. So 10 thought leaders, influencers, innovators at a time, like we can come together and just knowing that it's like, look, yes, things are shifting, they're changing, they need to change. If you don't feel right, if you feel off, hey, other people do too. Like hopefully that already has made people go, oh, okay, breath of fresh air.
It's okay.
I've got a few good ideas. I am jiving with this. But yeah, so now in my own advice, let's talk about a framework that you can think about when it comes to, okay, so Jason's saying I can find out of the gajillion ways to do business online, one of the ones that works well for me. So I'm going to give you here, and I have it written down just so I make sure that I hit them all. I'm going to give you 5 things to be thinking about, because you need to find the business model that's right for you. Often it feels like there's like 3 business models and take your pick, and there's like 3 dudes at the top. 3 dudes that, they're smart, they're great, love them. I'm not going to name names, but look, there's a lot of different ways to do business. So let me give you a framework here. And the number one comes to positioning, which is your brand messaging. It's who you are, who you stand for. And we already kind of touched on that. You got to stand out from the cycle of sameness. And that comes from resonance. That comes from finding your voice. That comes from that experimentation, following your intuition, and just going for really connecting and understanding and iterating on the audience that you love and trust the best. Now, we could talk a whole hour just about any one of these, but I just want to lay out the framework so people can be thinking about, okay, I'm going to find the right way for me in each of these 5 areas. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I skipped one. Let's go back. So positioning, brand positioning, that's great. Right before that is design your legacy, right? Design what is the change you want to make, the body of work. And, perhaps I imagine a lot of people have got that idea of, in a way, and hopefully you've defined that really well. And I think that's wonderful. And I think the only little tweak I would ask to people to think about there is often we've got our vision or our vision board, like up here on the wall, something like that. And we're so looking at the horizon at what we want to create that sometimes we forget, like, what do I need right now to feel energized and fueled and creative, right? If I'm always thinking about like pointing at the future, well, maybe I'm not, filling my own creativity or connecting in the way with people that I need, or the alone time that I need, or the kind of team that so it's also, don't forget, your legacy starts now, and you need the now and your needs now in order to keep moving towards a legacy. So that's
I was so guilty of this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was fortunate enough to be on a television show last year, and when I left, I called my media team and said, I want this. I am so alive. I'm so energized. I want more of this. And then since then, that's a lot of what I think about. You know, it's on my vision board. It's how do I get there? How do I get there? How do I get there? And I got to where I was like, oh my God, I don't want to even walk into my office anymore. And so it was the now that was the issue. And it's like, okay, great. I'm creating that. And that'll come if it's supposed to come. And if it doesn't, whatever. But how do I feel that same way in the present? And one of those is having, you know, being able to put myself on video and have these conversations that I think really are life-changing for business owners.
Perfect example. Love that.
Designing your legacy, right? That's where that came from. And being really comfortable in the now. I'm butchering what you said. What's step number 2?
Okay. So we had legacy, then we had brand positioning, which I kind of touched on there. That's the turning it up 11 to 11. That's the resonance, really finding your voice and owning that. And then the next one is your platform. And, you know, this is just what channels are you going to use? How are you going to congregate your community? How are you going to create that movement? And just the one piece I want people to realize there is just because, again, somebody else is doing this or that doesn't mean that you have to do it that way too. There are a lot of ways. And you know what? I see people doing really, really well who don't have a blog or a podcast, or you know what? Sometimes they get really far, not even having a website, you know, they're holding their workshops and things are starting to grow. And then they come, you know, so I'm just saying there's a lot of different ways to build that platform. The most important thing here is find a platform, a channel or two that you can just be prolific and have fun and create lots of amazing stuff, and just be putting out the messy process as you're figuring it out and connecting and meaningful with those feedback loops going. So whatever it is, just find that, you know, more important than, oh, what is the thing? What, you know, when people ask me, what's the next thing on the internet to get attention? It's like, no, don't think about that. You know, if Facebook Live doesn't jive with you, who cares that everyone is talking about Facebook Live, right? Yeah. So that's platform. Next is your products, right? So it's turning your brilliance into frameworks. Okay. That's the thing, is often we're thinking about it in terms of strategies. Oh, membership sites. Okay. Somebody said that's the thing, passive income, recurring, steady, great. And it's like, maybe not. I had a conversation just with somebody yesterday where I laid out an argument why the next thing she should do probably isn't a membership site, even though that's what the market was telling her, right? Now, you know, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But the bigger point here is that there are a lot, like if you first step back and you really know, here is my process, you know, here is the Kendrick process. You know, I've done work with you and you have all these great frameworks that you lay out. It's like, okay, time for a sales page. Okay, bam, 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 bam. Now we're going to Dr. Dre it. You're right. That's the first time I've heard anybody call it that, right? Sticks in my brain, right? It's the Kendrick method. So, and you know, that stuff you've also pulled and learned from other places, but you've made your style off authentic selling. And now you're out there, the only one like sharing it, right? So first, I think it is owning that thing that is yours, that process, that method. And now it becomes very easy to take chunks of that and turn it into, and even try different things out, group program, or maybe the membership site, or maybe, and just because somebody says, hey, ebook, digital course, and then mastermind, you know what? That's just one of a billion different models. So that's the biggest thing. Get your framework down. So then it becomes easy to productize, programize, and try different things to have the kind of impact that you want. And then the last thing, so we've had legacy, positioning, platform, your products, and then the fifth one is your path. And this is actually the customer path. This is crafting a journey for your customer. And the reason why I say journey is we talk about scaling and funnel, and we kind of hinted at this earlier, growth. Well, growth has two sides. There is the numbers, you know, the reach, and especially income when we look at conversions and optimizing the conversions, and are we getting more traffic and are more of those people becoming customers and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you know, money helps you grow. You deserve to get paid for what you do. Then there's the impact, influence, legacy side of things. And growing the numbers sometimes is at odds with this side. Like, yeah. Hey, one of the best ways for you to create numbers would be just to crank out the ebooks and throw a bunch of paid traffic at it and trade dollar, you know, for $1.50 over and over and over again. But is it going to help you make the kind of transformation and change that you want? So finding the way to grow the numbers while still growing the impact in the way you want is really important. And the way you do that is you craft not just a funnel, not just a system, not just an automated marketing machine. You need to craft a customer journey. And that is, hey, for the length of time that somebody is in the presence of you and your business, whether that's 2 months, whether that's 2 years, whether that's a decade, what does that conversation, I often think of it as a conversation or journey, look like for them, from being somebody who's maybe completely unaware of what it is that you offer and just knows that they have this pain, and then comes to completely believe it's like, oh, you do have a different way. And oh, I want to learn it from you. Okay. And here's the first thing. And then, okay, now here's the next thing. And the next logical thing is over here. And you're just really thinking about maximizing not just the income per customer, which is great. It's a great way to grow a business, but also the impact and influence that is delivered to every customer for the lifetime, again, 2 months, 2 years, 10 years that they are in your business. And that requires scaling both income and impact at the same time, so that they don't fight against each other and one doesn't squash the other. So those are the 5 things: legacy, positioning, platform, products, and path. And if you keep those 5 in mind with some of the things we've talked about today, that gives you a framework to start going, okay, well, this is my business model. And when I start hearing that hypey marketing thing out there or comparing myself with somebody else, let me come back to what I've kind of started putting together here and make sure that it actually jives. And I'm not just taking a square peg in a round hole because, you know, somebody's sexy marketing message made me feel like that's what I had to do. So there's the framework that I would share with people.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. It really helps people get an idea of if they're feeling this, where to start, what not to do, what things they can sit down and work out for themselves. Let's say, Jason, that somebody is listening and they're like, okay, you know, we've got legacy, positioning, platform, all of those things, but I'm not exactly sure what to do from there. Like, I get it. I'm jiving with the message, right? Let's say that they want to know more about how to do that. What can they contact you? Is this something that you're teaching?
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the dinners in just a minute, but
Sure.
Is this something that you're teaching or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an interesting thing because two years ago when I decided, hey, I need to make a shift, I decided, hey, what would I like to do? I'm going to do one-on-one coaching, right? Which seemed like such a backwards thing. It's like, okay, I've done at scale for 10 years, made all this money. Why would I go back to trading my time for money? But it was what felt good. I was following my intuition, and it was the perfect thing for me to do because I have been able to do this 5-piece framework with so many one-on-one clients and really get that feedback and figure out how to turn this into a framework now that I can start scaling very carefully and applying in a way that will work for a lot of different people. So now I'm in the process of creating workshops, both in person and online. You've been helping me with putting together the messaging and communicating. You know, if some of what I've said today sound eloquent, I do have to give you some credit there, Kendrick, for helping me pull that together, right? And so, I'm going to start taking small groups of people, both in person here in New York City, or also as a virtual group online, because I know not everybody has the capacity to travel, and walk you through each of these 5 pieces, whether you're already, you know, ways into your business or, I mean, if you're just starting out trying to figure out your thing, it's probably not quite ready for you. But if you know your thing and you know your audience and you have either one-on-one or through speaking or a book or something, got that value out there, and now you're ready, like, but what is my business model for impact and income? Then that's what this workshop is all about. And it'll just take you over a process probably of like about 8 weeks. We're going to kind of go through each of these 5 pieces. I don't know, maybe it'd be more than 8 weeks, because honestly, I'm still kind of iterating now the group program, but I have the framework down. And now I'm looking for just the right people to do a group program around these things. And, you know, if that's something that excites people, absolutely, I would love to talk to them. And just the best thing to do would be, there's not even a sales page quite yet. We have been writing it, right, Kendrick? But the best thing right now is just to contact me directly, jason@jasonvanorden.com, if any of this stuff interests you. And I'd be happy to chat some more.
I'll post that under the Facebook Live when we're done, Jason@jasonvanorden.com. And then the other thing I want to touch on really quickly is the dinners. So when Jason told me about his vision for these dinners, I was like, I want to be there. Can I have an invitation? And so I have to tell you all about these dinners. So Jason has this vision, and I think it's just brilliant, of having 10-ish thought leaders come to New York City. And again, for newbies and people who are starting out, this is probably not the best. No, not probably. It's not the best course of action for you right now, because you're not quite ready for this conversation. You will be, but it's just not. This is for people who have been around for a while, who probably have created, who have created some successful income. Not that income matters, but are feeling perhaps a little disheartened with the industry about what to do next. We know how to check the box and make that next 6 figures, next million, but it doesn't really light us up. So Jason said, I want to create these dinners where we thought leaders come together in New York City and 10 or so, and we talk about all of this stuff. And we use the collective brain power to come up with new solutions about how we come back and continue to raise the bar and continue to be thought leaders and continue to set the example for all the people coming in here like we were all those years ago. And so Jason, if people want to be in the room where that happens, how do they even get considered for that?
Well, again, you can just email me, Jason at jasonvanorden.com. We just had one last week, and I could not be more thrilled with how it turned out. I'll admit that being like a curator of people and creator of a space for people isn't something that I realized I had in me, but apparently I really enjoyed it, and the feedback has been great. I'm just looking at a couple comments here. I mean, somebody said, I'll fly up for one of these any day. If this was a program, I'd sign up right now. I'll give you my credit card. And just, hey, it was incredibly validating and comforting to hear that we're all going through a lot of the same things. So it's like a mini mastermind, curated networking, and then also just a nice, break bread with people as well. And if that's something, right now I'm just doing them in New York, but in the very near future, I am hoping to not, start putting them into other markets. In fact, I am going to do actually one in London a little bit later this year. So if that interests you, Jason at jasonvanorden.com, would love to put you on the list to attend one of those dinners.
That's amazing. And those things are going to sell out like that. I mean, well, I don't even know. Is there a cost for that at this time?
There's a cost, but I'm not, this isn't like an income stream for me. It's like I cover my cost of getting like a private dining room, catered 3-course meal, nice,
There's not really
it's totally reasonable for what you get.
And it covers the room. So really it's just about, and I'm doing the Hamilton reference, but it's about being in the room where it happens, where we decide how we want this industry to be. So Jason, I'm going to close with, first of all, extending massive gratitude to you for being here, for being willing to have this conversation. I almost feel like it was taboo for a while. Like, my life's so great and so wonderful, and I'm not happy, but I don't want to tell anybody that.
I know. Yeah.
So I'm extremely grateful for you opening up this conversation. It needs to be had. And then I'm gonna leave you with the question that was sort of the hook of this entire interview. Is our industry broken?
Well, there's so much possibility out there. And just because maybe you're just struggling with the way to just reach out and embrace that possibility for yourself and the world, actually there's more possibility than ever. It's just that we need to be ready and willing to follow our intuition and find those more innovative, better, more elevated ways about it. And, we'll turn the Wild West into an amazing place to live, right? So
I love it.
That would be my answer to the question.
I love it. So I think Jason and I agree. It's not broken. There's always work to do, right? There's always work to do, but it's not broken. And it's up to you. It's up to you, thought leaders, to be the example, to rise up, to be in the room where it happens. I mean, I stole so much from Hamilton right then.
It's a good show. Speaking of innovation.
It is. Exactly. Right. It took him 7 years, but look what he created. Yeah. Jason, thank you again for being here. It is my immense pleasure to share your work with my audience and with the other audiences where this will air. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Kendrick.
I believe in you and I believe in your business. If I can do this, you can. Get out there and do it. Jason at jasonvanorden.com. Have a good day.